This video I'm gonna record as an update for Ukraine from my point of view on how I see this and when it comes to my mind are two things. Basically, a gentleman you see here, definitely, and it comes to me, this thing here. This is what disturbs me very much, I have to say, deeply disturbs me, this stuff here. When I think that just today, don't know how much you guys are familiarized with, but if you look at the map, you're gonna see on the map right in front of the Severodonetsk you have Lysychansk city. On both sides of the river, Silversky Donets river, there are 200,000 people. Severodonetsk 100,000, Lysychansk 100,000. Now this story we have seen on many occasions because there are so many cities, Ukrainian cities, that are occupied. We at present see struggle even in Kharkiv. Kherson, I cannot believe, have fallen down. I cannot believe that the Russians actually crossed Great Dnipro River. They no longer are on the eastern side of Dnipro River. That's going to open a new front here on Ukraine. They took over entire Sea of Azov, and when you could look at this side, it's what I stated. They crossed Dnipro River. You see this here, this is a Dnipro River. It's 128th day of the war in Ukraine, and I just want to give my input basically on how I see these things based on politicians from all over the world, especially Vladimir Putin, Americans inside of this house, British, that would meet for really no less than 26 years. They were making deals in here. I observe literally Vladimir Putin's nightmare right now when it comes to Ukraine, because absolutely everything Western media depicts accordingly with instructions, as a matter of fact, agreement with Vladimir Putin. It's like 100%. It's not that it would be something like this, something like that. They are psychologically portraying reality in a completely unreal, motivational, brain-targeted world of lies. Basically, they are inciting, they were provocating into war. Oh, Russia lost this, Russia lost that, and Russia doesn't even mind. Russia doesn't mind to be seen in the foreign media as incompetent soldiers, ran, escaped, deserters, surrender. It's all got a very strong background, a very strong. You're gonna see when you're gonna realize that expired dates that were inside of the tanks, Russian tanks, the on their food supplies they brought along from Russia. You're gonna see what surprise you're gonna have when they're gonna announce you that it was tactical, just like it's absolutely everything tactical. Everything is tactical. You can bring a lot of Russian soldiers that surrender, infiltrate as prisoners in Ukraine, and start brainwashing Ukrainian people and so on. Basically, at times, people that are completely incompetent but can be used in a variety of ways. Extremely polished military operation, as Vladimir Putin calls this. And then you have on the other hand side of the table, you have Russia doesn't even mind to burn tires in Moscow. Russia doesn't mind to blow on Moscow cruiser. Just, have you guys even checked how old that junk was? I mean, what they call state of the art should have gone to commission. Fire, burning refinery over there in the city right next to Ukraine. The Russians deliberately did so the people, the world, see that there is war, that there is some kind of resistance, something is going on, that things are happening. It's unbelievable how the news is twisted around. Let's say they say that today the news. Yeah, I wasn't going to show you this news, but this is a good news to see. You know, when Vladimir Putin was inside of the room, what he said precisely about this news here? He insisted, he said, I can't wait to get rid. I can't wait to get rid this old weaponry. Have you seen how the West is giving to Ukraine this old weapons? They're getting rid of old weaponry. Well, the Russians also don't want to have the old. Well, it's actually was a day earlier. So, but this is a perfect example. Russians withdraw old military equipment from storage. But it was this news that I really or let's say this one here. Putin may now become more dangerous. Why? Because he's got a cancer. Putin has got a cancer. So we should worry about Putin is having a cancer. That's what we should be worrying about. That so that he's going to become more dangerous. They're using a cancer which Vladimir Putin doesn't even probably even have any cancer. Vladimir Putin right now is in a situation and can come out as a total hero, Tsar. Or if disaster strikes Russia, he might disappear through his cancer issues. And third, he doesn't even, I believe, have, as a matter of fact, he did have, but I don't think he suffered to the degree they're depicting one as like on the brink with a cancer and so on, to demonstrate his psychological, like, it's going to be even more dangerous because I got a cancer. No, more extreme. You know, basically Russia threatened with nuclear attack and stuff like this. Now they're gonna fight more because Putin's got a cancer. No, so Putin now is half insane. So you gotta take him seriously. His threats even more. Come on, man. Do you guys understand that Western media? Look at this. This is a perfect one. This is the one I was. The war with Russia, the main events, July 1st. And that's exactly what I was looking for. The occupiers fled Snake Island and are removing equipment from storage on Sakhalin. Ukraine is preparing to receive a lot of heavy weapons. You know, you know how misleading this is, but it's perfect for me to talk about in this video. It's perfect, but it's totally misleading. Nah. They fled Snake Island and they are removing equipment from storage on Sakhalin, Ukraine. Okay, and Ukraine is preparing to receive lots of heavy weapons. Who are these people here that report this stuff? It's called Babel UA. Well, these people belong to a narrow circle of people in Ukraine. These people are not what you would say like these people are a good people. I'm not saying anything against these people here. These are Ukrainian people and they're doing their best. Their idea is to assist as possible, as much as possible, this gentleman right here, as you see. That's Mr. Zelensky right there. Yeah. But the reality of the matter of fact in Ukraine, with Ukraine, is completely 100% totally different. That's what worries me. It worries me because when I go to Yahoo, when I go to Express UK, when I go to these big Western mainstream media outlets, I see that all the news they prepared in advance, polished in advance, is being released accordingly to Vladimir Putin's instructions. What worries me is this thing here. This is what worries me. Vladimir Putin, the map that you see right there, this is exactly the map that Vladimir Putin had in his mind. I mean, he charted me map, and boy, I'm not stupid. I identified a lot of people involved in MK Ultra, so I can confirm that the map you see here, it's exactly to the last millimeter with a precision drawn by Vladimir Putin personally. You understand? This, what you see here, this is what Vladimir Putin took pencil and he went, this is, it's going to be exactly like this. Okay? You understand? Like this. This is a bottom. This is what worries me. This is the stuff that worries me. Now you're gonna say Russia is so big, powerful, and all this and all that. Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help. The idea about all this stuff was to help Ukraine. I am trying to help Ukraine already since '95. I'm not here to give a hard time to anybody for no reason. I want to remind you that I supported Zelensky until, well, you could say today. Yesterday, however, I published a different news. I somehow don't see myself in this anymore. I don't think it's realistic. As much as I love his statements, on how he will liberate Ukraine. I don't think the man has what it takes to liberate Ukraine. He did spoke to me about giving up certain parts of Ukraine where there was a large population of Russians. It was a big disagreement within the circle of people. He's not the only one who's making the decisions. It's other people that make decisions that he have to sit and draw decisions. It was not okay. And it just worries me that his words and reality right there in front of our eyes, that I demonstrated this thing, this map, the Putin is reality, um, is just something that's going to lead Ukraine basically to sign literally a so-called peace deal according to Vladimir Putin's state with Russia. Um, there is a lot of factors, and that's why this video, there's a lot of stuff I want to start talking about that is just does not match what I presume as something that I would actually rate as the way to go. Yeah, okay, I can't. We see on the media daily on how Ukrainians destroyed this, Ukrainians destroyed that, and it's every time when the doubts come out, it's that kind of news that somehow is released and ridiculing, and we always see how, if you go back to this news seen right here, the occupiers have fled Snake Island and are removing equipment from storage in Sakhalin. This was reported to the media in general. This was reported to the media in general. You know, like in a funny, ridiculous way. Like Russia is. Let's see this. They're running out of equipment. You know, they're desperate, basically. They're desperate. They're running out of tanks. You know, the Russian occupiers, you know, withdrawing weapons, military equipment from storage in the most remote regions of Russia, such as Kaliningrad Oblast and Sakhalin Island, in order to cover current losses. Statement, you know. The Russians are withdrawing the necessary weapons and military equipment from storage. I'm not going to even go and see who did this, but I'm going to tell you, if the Russian did this, he did a good job. If I repeat you again, all the equipment Ukraine got from the West so far is just West-wise. This is old, outdated equipment. Russia too has this junk. They want to get rid of it. And per need, I was even taken to Moscow and demonstrated buildings that you have seen burnt, and to other towns that they burned to make the news. They'll give you a statement like this for the old junk to get that much land this year. This guy is going to be a Tsar. I'm telling you, there's no way you're going to stop him. He accomplished with all junk big victory for Russia. This is all junk, is what I was guaranteed. But they do have a newer stuff ready for the war, for the continuation of the war. Putin stated he's got no interest in stopping the war at any time. Based on how we see this stuff, if I go back to West, when I think about Ukraine is preparing to receive a lot of heavy weapons. Well, we see every day, we see in the media, every day we see this, the news, right? What is it? The Pentagon, again, America, again approved 850 million in assistance to Ukraine, right? If you go to Ukraine, hear the news. Oh, my question is how many jets were received? Nothing was received. So that's all we listened. We listened about how they're going to get the jets. Remember Slovakia, Poland, all these jets they're going to get. They started to collect this old MiG-29. Just as I stated, the West also want to get rid of this MiG-29, actually old military equipment. They're not going to even give any kind of planes, fighter jets. As Secretary Lloyd Austin stated in his assessment to a Polish counterpart, and stated a high-risk venture. It would be a high-risk venture given those old fucked up jets to Ukraine. There will be no jets for Ukraine. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back to this news here, time is of essence here. If those jets were given to Ukraine 2 months ago, there will be way lesser losses on the Ukrainian side than if you give them tomorrow, today. They should have been there already. But this is not the only thing. This stuff happened over and over again. We always see this country approves so much. That country approves so much. We see a lot of news like this. We see a lot about this one approves, that one approves, but very little, if anything, in some situations of cases with the fighter jets, ever comes to Ukraine, ever gets there. And Vladimir Putin's got a cancer and he's mad as fucking hell. You better be afraid. Because this is the news basically they feed us in respect to Ukraine. And this man here, he claims he's going to liberate, that he's going to start a counteroffensive. Let me explain something. There's 1,000 Ukrainian heroes, best of Ukraine, that are dying daily in war with Russia, just trying to keep the borders intact, lost borders intact. Well, obviously there is everything wrong with this kind of strategy, right? If you're gonna liberate occupied territory, then you have to change entirely the strategy. And looking at a strategy that Ukraine operates, I've seen 97% of Ukrainians, it was written, trust their military. Of course they trust. It's the best of Ukraine that is shredded at this point. And I don't trust news like this, because I think that this best of Ukraine, I think, should be on a warfield facing stress, danger. throwing fat on themselves, just maximum like 30 days, maybe 1 week, 30 days and 1 week. And then they should be substituted, replaced with another group of trained soldiers for at least a month, during which they should spend, let's say, exercising, walking 40, 50 kilometers a day, keeping themselves in a great fitness, foremost, relaxing themselves to a certain degree before returning back in a battle. Spend maybe 1 week again with those who came to replace them, to give them a good update, to get into their mode. And this is the engine that should, rather than tell us how they just, fuck that. This is the engine. It's how the whole thing should operate. You see, Ukraine, the only way for survival of Ukraine, that's the way it is. Now, Russia not. Russia is aggressor. Putin can with a difficulty do something like this. He can have a serious difficulty by saying people, you're gonna go and you're gonna do this. You must. You. People in Russia know what's going on. Country financially somewhat is facing certain issues. However, if you want to liberate the country, when you are attacked, you have to adapt yourself and implement certain things, in this case, that Russia cannot. That's advantage Ukraine is not taking. So the strategy, I see, the military strategy sucks. This is not a strategy that's going to bring return Ukrainian territory to Ukraine. Strategy to Mr. Zelensky, which he adapted completely, strategy that you probably guys are still thinking about that news, right? They brainwash you with. March, April, June, 3 months they brainwash you. You know this? Did you realize about these fighter jets, how they're going to go to Ukraine? How Slovakia and it's going to be Poland and it's all these countries, they're going to send fighter jets. These old Russian MiG-29 fighter jets that they're going to go to Ukraine. You're probably still thinking that they're going to come to Ukraine, right? They're not coming anywhere. Cancelled. Pentagon canceled them. Nothing is coming. It's going to be other weapons that are going to come. That's how the Western mainstream media works, and it's not for free. I already explained everything about how they were making deals, how they sealed the deals, and so on. Right now, the best of Ukraine is being shredded. 1,000 per day. 1,000 Ukrainian hero lives are thrown away. I think it's a catastrophe. The European Union offer for Ukraine to become a member, this is about the same thing like the economic aid that comes from the West. It's something Ukraine doesn't need at this time. Ukraine at this point in time needs air supremacy over Ukraine so the troops can avoid obvious fatalities. They can perform their ground operations rather than to be decimated by aggressor, by totally foreign military. All these things, however, Mr. Zelensky and his group of people are taking account accordingly to agreement they previously have made with the West. That's what worries me about Zelensky. Yeah, I'm just worried about Ukraine destroying its best and just giving up on its best territory, because there's no better territory than what Putin took so far in Ukraine. What's the most valuable Putin already have stolen, and prepared himself for additional phases of attack on Ukraine. And I'm just simply worried that the news network that you have seen right there, let's say Babel, that is publishing uh, misleading news, and they know that this is not the news that is according to reality. It covers up the real assessment of the situation, which Ukraine really should have been extremely critical during already second month of the war. It's right now past 4 months. It's going into fifth month. It's 128th day. And Ukraine, on my disappointment, because I fought for Ukraine since 1995, this war did not start now. It did not start today. Never ever mentioned me absolutely anywhere. He involved me on million occasions in Ukrainian operations to learn as much as possible from the observing how Russians are reacting, will react, assess, do things, and so on. Um, they also learn something little from this place here, I suppose. I'm worried about that stuff because of the Russian flag this little Slovenian state has as a national flag. It's a disgrace, and these are the things that it's a bigger disgrace than what Vladimir Zelensky even understood. Vladimir Zelensky did not even understood why Slovenia and Serbia and Croatia are not still Yugoslavia and stuff like this. He had difficulties understanding that Vladimir Zelensky was one of the politicians that turned against me in 95. He was involved in 95 and was religiously attacking me, declared vendetta on me for at least like 10 fucking straight years. When Joe Biden stated that Zelensky did not believe that Russia is going to attack, he exaggerated. I believe that Zelensky did prepare himself well, acquainted himself with the situation and so on, but I believe, on the other hand, that his circle of people is just not realistic about the real assessment about really what is taking place, because they are just convinced. I remember Klitschko. Some of them were fucking envious, angry that I was on the side of Ukraine. Some of them were certain that I'm deliberately hurting Ukraine. Some of them were just, it was all kinds of stuff that goes literally into American civil rights issues because of the civil rights leaders and society itself that stepped, just like Donald Trump, let's say world of business people, London, Buckingham Palace, people that were interested in where can't you find people like this, more into financial earning basically cash literally through reputation, human rights reputation, lies for the cost of lies, it doesn't matter. Russia, there was no European leader that would not fall on knees in front of Vladimir Putin when in Novosibirsk. All the European leaders, royalties, everybody went to Novosibirsk. The oil, gas, minerals, it all took them down. I've seen with my eyes people that you could basically enemies of a Russian Serbian politics giving up for the sake of this. Started to compete with their adversaries. Confused, mentally unstable, and snap at one point to the other side, basically. I've seen this shit with my eyes over and over again. I have seen stuff drugged up more than the people, presidents that were not drugged up, that would go and negotiate and were all the time present. Their view was limited. My view also was limited. But the amount of people that I came across in a very private settings, it was 1,000 times bigger, let's say, than somebody like Macron or Angela Merkel. And what can you say about these people? And these people, you could say that they know in and out absolutely everything. Well, I have seen more than that, in my way. And sure, I am certain they have seen far more in their way. Totally inaccessible to me, of course. But I give my here input about how I see this as. And so listen up. If you want to fight the war in Ukraine, you're gonna need some weapons. You're gonna need you're gonna need next to proper military strategy, you're gonna need some weapons. Zelensky did calm down. He did realize that things are not going in the right direction, and I might just not be that evil. It might be that war went on against me, as a matter of fact, against Ukraine already, way before I came on the picture. They realized a lot of things along the way about where the whole thing is moving. And that's why I supported one. I supported one. Today is June 7, you could say until June 6. But this circle of people is, in my opinion, this is fucking unrealistic. It's in in instances full of hatred, resentment. I'm afraid. I don't have any, but I'm afraid that people who did me harm, the people who did me damage, I'm afraid there is something else in this game. I'm afraid that there is a personal pride. I'm afraid that there are issues knowing that wrong did no good. Cluster this picture even further and make things even more difficult. And the fact of the matter is that whether you like it or not, you're gonna need weaponry. You're gonna have to set the mechanism in United States and in Britain and in Germany and in Holland and in Scandinavia and in France and in Italy and in Spain that will release those weapons that will release the assistance that is needed so that the country can get into a mode that will bring restored its borders, the continent, so that will increase its security as whole. The structures I have just mentioned, talked about, you are not going to see any of that stuff happening. I know the structure since 1995. I had a big problem with them. They were right, however, I was wrong. I was the one who demanded the fighter jets immediately, immediately NATO, immediately everything possible into Ukraine, immediately assistance, immediately everything for Ukraine since 1995. That's what that's who I was. I wanted everything to go. And they were not sure if they would place those um, bases, NATO, in Ukraine, if they would give the technology, where exactly would this technology end up, was one of the pretexts, I think. But in a way, that's true. That ended up eating me and taking away from me certainty on how to view things. Yeah, you gotta admit they had a point. Zelensky was a mobster until 2005, something like this. He was not alone. It was a whole package of others that are making decisions with him today. Remember that Ukraine, after all, not returned, but gave up its nuclear arsenal that one inherited from Soviet Union to Russia. Russia did not thank for, but according to my own input I got from Russians, it was because of our people, therefore Russians, that we got our weapons back. There's never thank you from the Russian side, keep in mind. And so, without being realistic, and I heard from Ukrainian side on the top side, you will never, we will never, we will not do this and we will not do that. They had in their head idea that the victory will just that it's just that just you know totally wrong idea about the whole thing. You know, this people, most of these people around Zelensky, they shouldn't be anywhere. They shouldn't even fucking be anywhere. Parliament, they shouldn't fucking step inside in there really to make decisions. It was just like we say, like naive, like people without experience, without expertise, that read, watch the media and believe basically in the fables, you know, in a democratic values in the U.S. Basically how everybody gets along and stuff like this. It's just basically how I came to United States in '95. It would be really fine. It would be great, and I personally am dedicated despite everything to support these ideals. Ukraine must continue to support these ideals, that kind of stuff. But world is not so just. World is not so just. Behind the people that claimed claimed this kind of things, usually it's instigation that's hiding behind. The world is a trickery. The world absolutely is not 100% of the time, I can tell you, what it portrays to be, try to looks like. You're gonna have to take in account some expertise and allow for this matter to expand, whether you like it or not. You're gonna have to allow a dialogue. It's a fourth month. For the fourth month, they told me we already gonna look the other way, the opposite way, if it's not gonna happen. You're gonna have to allow, you understand? You're gonna have to allow for the communication to develop. You're gonna have to allow those mechanisms, the state mechanisms that have been silenced, oppressed, pushed aside, oftentimes destroyed even, to operate. So that the same like during the World War II, when you had Jews killed already at large here in Europe, the truth can come out. It was in the US. They just somehow, and it was also in Britain for a very long time, but especially in the US, just the truth would not come out about what went on till it was already greatly too late. The borders greatly changed. The war was rampant and completely uncontrollable. What a miracle that World War II developed in this way. But if you don't understand, we are already in the World War III. You have to also consider Asian part, where China is taken away from Vietnam, from Philippines, what they refer to as South China Sea, through the theft of the islands that belong eventually, Spratly Islands that eventually are Philippine islands. They are trying to steal not only those islands which they have already occupied, but entire territory, all the way to Indonesia, Cambodia. You guys understand that we are at the beginning, that the World War III already have developed. You got to realize this. You gotta be honest. You gotta admit it. You gotta see it about how people are treated, this Uyghur people over there. It's not about the Taiwan only that they are trying to burn one to the ground for the cost of occupation, for the cost of territorial needs that never ever existed, any kind of threat to China really. So far there was no threat. Taiwan did not attack China and did not present any kind of threats. But we can see Kim Jong-un from Northern Korea shooting his rockets to the sea, to the ocean. We can see a schizophrenic, insane Chinese state threatening daily and treating Uyghur minority. And I'm gonna say never mind Chinese, because they matter. They greatly matter. Chinese people greatly matter, but you gotta start somewhere to restrain this stuff. They treat Uyghur people worse than the farmers treat cattle. Completely indifferent they treat them. They treat them like animals inside of the concentration camps. Internment. What crap. We are at the beginning of the World War III if you don't understand. And there are certain mechanisms in this Western world, including the mainstream media, that will not allow that defense mechanisms to trigger themselves. Without the dialogue, without the truth, who gathered here inside of this house for so many years, for 2 decades and a half, over 2 decades and a half, you are setting yourself for a disaster. Vladimir Putin is in no hurry to stop the war. In some situations, numbers financially even benefit his export of petroleum gas when compared to situation prior to the war in 2022, because the price increased, went up. You're gonna have to do something about this. This is a problem. You're gonna have to set aside a personal bullshit and put the country on a first place, Mr. Zelensky, in your circle, because it's about more than your personal issues. It's about Ukrainian best that goes to waste every day. I don't think I can add to any of this. I could talk more about this stuff, but I don't think I can add anything else. You're gonna have to do something about this. A Sea of Azov is actually Ukrainian, a Sea of Ukraine. This all used to be Ukraine. And with the territorial loss that Ukraine have faced, the Ukraine barely, if you ask me, can even exist. It is a disaster, in which case I believe Ukraine must come out as a winner, as a complete winner, retrieving all its stolen territories. By the way, I dislike very much your statement about how you would not use nuclear weapons on Russia. Frankly, that day I was in between to actually even rate you as a traitor. That is the statement that should never come out from a leader, and you, sir, have positioned yourself, because it was Russia that instigated how Ukraine has dirty weapons. You, sir, have positioned yourself even under Putin like his dog, like in a way like you're working for him, because your response properly should state that Russia is aggressor, attacker, who is inquiring about Ukrainian dirty weapons. as for the only dirty weapons so far in this war are the weapons of aggressor, attacker, the one committing a genocide, ethnic extermination of Ukrainian people, which already have performed for the last 100 years. That's the proper answer. Under no circumstances should you give him assurance that you will not use nuclear weapons on Russia. That's for one thing. And then there was a whole list of other issues completely indifferent from you personally and Polacks. It's not only about you. Insisting me how I should not get into absolutely any conflict with the Chinese, that you will work with them, that you have agreement and this and that. I don't have any fucking agreement with the Chinese. I stepped in on a Chinese toes the day when they expressed a total disrespect, disdain for Ukrainian existence. I've ignored a Chinese torture that took place inside of this house on God knows how many occasions. They have subjected me to torture in a Kirka pharmaceutical company next door, and a variety different locations right here in this city too, where Chinese participated. They also have stores here, you know. I ignored the death threats, a torture that was used whenever I was brought to China. I ignored the torture of even Chinese psychiatrists in United States of America, to whom Americans have surrendered me so they could do with me whatever they wanted, and have stepped on your side, sir. Even that you insisted me how under no circumstances I should resent myself to Chinese as you're going to work. You, in other words, sir, you placed your own personal interests on a first place before Ukraine. I'm going to tell you, because that's what the business people do. Because this is exactly what Hungarian president did. People that wait for the war to go past then, and so they can start the trading relations again with Russia and profit from within. People like yourself that assured me that China, no, actually Chinese did, is indifferent from Russia in a sense of producing chips and certain technology which so much outprices others that it is impossible, if you are in a certain industry, is to have conflict with them. That I sincerely have to express doubts about your work, doubts about you, doubts about the people that are accepting, making decisions next to you. You have not convinced me, based on this map here that Vladimir Putin charted me, based on what you get to Ukraine from the West, based on how the military itself is ran. You, I must say, have not convinced me. You, with the technique you're using, will not be capable to even sustain, resist further Russian attacks. Severodonetsk is gone. Now it's about Lysychansk. I cannot believe what I see in front of me. Kherson. When it comes to Mariupol, I don't think I would ever give one. I don't think I would give a people, the most precious people, away. I know it probably would be very difficult to set them free. But next to the assurances you have given, I don't actually understand how possibly you would. Sir, you have eventually, with your group of people with whom you are making these decisions, you have not convinced me. That's all I'm saying to you today. I don't know how you're going to interpret it. If I were in your shoes and if I see the man like this on my side, especially when I say when you're in your shoes because you know me so well, you know exactly who I am. I wouldn't waste past 2 months based on what I would observe, based on my meetings already with Western leaders prior to war, assessment. I would never waste past 2 months to meet this guy in person and launch one and start basically what is known as a real war. Basically, I would trigger the European security so that I would actually have a chance to survive. I don't know how otherwise to tell you. Uh, a chance to survive, retrieve my territories back, and get myself into NATO and European Union. That's all I want to say. I know that this sounds like too good to be true, like a fable, but the thing about it is, if this shit is going to go for much longer like this, with how things are developing, it definitely will be a fable. You gotta be realistic. You gotta think about, you gotta take into account how things are developing. You gotta assess the situation. You gotta be honest with yourself and you gotta be honest with Ukrainian people. Things in Ukraine, the way things are going, are not good. They're not good, and you know they're going in the wrong direction. That's all I want to say today. Thanks for watching this video.